Very good morning, all of you. Welcome to Testbook IAS Super Coaching. In this session, I will be discussing about ocean currents. So, my dear friends, I think you all know me now. I'm Venkatesh. So, today we'll be discussing about ocean currents as such. So, what are actually ocean currents? So, when you go to an ocean, when you see about movements of when you see the movements of oceanic water, what do you think you associate with them? Ocean currents move, right? Ocean water move. What are the types of movements of oceanic water? Can you name them? Can you name them? What are the types of movement of oceanic water? Movements of oceanic water. So, if you see the movements of oceanic water, I would say that tides are one movement, ocean currents are one movement, and also the waves which you see when you go to a beach. All these are movements of oceanic water. Am I right? Right. Today, we'll discuss about the far most important thing about the movements of oceanic water, that is the ocean currents. Do you know that these have a huge impact on the climatology, on the economy of a certain region? Yes, they have a far greater role in terms of the climate and as well as the economy, right? So, if you see the movements of oceanic water, just like how do you find a river where the water flows in a river, you'll also find that water also flows in the ocean in a rhythmic, particular, directional, predictable movements. What are ocean currents? Predictable, continuous, directional movement of oceanic water. How do you think that it looks like? I have done a GIF for you to make the task easier. You can see it now. You see here how the oceanic water is moving here. You can clearly see the red color, the water is moving like this continuously, and you see there is a downward movement. So, all these things indicate that oceanic current is moving in this way here. You can see here once again the water is moving from here to here, and then from here to here, and then once again to the south. So, there is a continuous, predictable, directional movement. These are what ocean currents. You can see about every other place. We'll discuss about all these things. We'll discuss how, why. Sir, how are they moving like this? Why not the other way? That is the first question you always get, no? Sir, why not this? Why not that? We will discuss that, right? So, let's start. So, what are ocean currents? As I told you, what are ocean currents? These are just a minute. What happened? Yeah. So, ocean currents, if you see, these are continuous, predictable, and directional, continuous, predictable, directional movement of oceanic water is what we call it as ocean currents. They are fairly continuous. That means it's not like Sunday, one day I'll absent, we have Sunday. No, no. They are continuously moving throughout the year. They are predictable. You know that they will be coming up. You know that they will be having this impact. And they are directional. There is a particular direction to it. These are what are ocean currents. That's what I told you. Just like how a river water moves, we can also expect that oceanic water also moves in a predictable, continuous, directional things. These are what you call it as ocean currents. Then the next obvious thing you need to have is how are they moved? What is the reason for their movement? How do the ocean currents move? What is the reason for that? There are certain primary factors. What are they? There are some kind of primary factors which initiate the movement. I hope you understand the difference here. There is a prime factor which will initiate, and there is a influencing factor, that is a secondary factor which influence the ocean currents. So you'll find multiple things. One of the most important thing you can find is wind. In fact, ocean currents are regarded as what? They are regarded as global heat balancing agents. What are they? Global heat balancing agents. Ocean currents are regarded as what? Global heat balancing agents. What do you mean by global heat balancing agents? See, we all know that insolation is one of the prime reason why there is so much amount of difference. So another secondary major factor, primary factor you have is insolation. So we all know that the Earth's surface receives unequal heat. It is not like you will find the heat at the same place. Different places will have different heat. Am I right? Right. So you see the equatorial regions receives more heat, and you see the polar regions which will leave very less heat. If that is the case, how do you think that? How do you think that that will have a role to play? So insolation, say for example, in the equatorial regions in Church or in the lower latitudes, the water expands. What does insolation do? The water expands in the equatorial regions because of more heat. As it expands, it spreads outward. Density is less. Whereas in the polar regions, you will find that the water is, in the polar regions, what will you find? That the water is more cooler because of the latitude. Because of that, the contraction will be there, and because of the contract, the density will become a bit more different. So the water will be very much different in terms of density at the equator in terms of when compared with the polar regions. That will help in initiation of movement of water. That is also one of the factor. So that is the thing. Because of this only, they are called as global heat balancing agents. In fact, the winds, the global winds, like westerlies, like you find the trade winds, they have a huge role to play. The global winds like westerlies, or else the trade winds, they are the ones which will have an impact with respect to ocean currents, and along with winds and the ocean currents, they are regarded as the global heat balancing agents. So you know that insolation is different across the world, and there are certain regions which have excess energy, certain regions which have less energy, excess and less. Who will balance this difference? The balance is differentiated, the balance is maintained by the winds and the ocean currents. And as the wind move, ocean currents are also moving. Ocean currents are also impacted by wind. Say for example, imagine I'm putting a table fan. I think you all know the table fan, isn't it? Table fan. For example, if there is a fan here, the standing fan, and I'll take a bowl of water. I will take a bowl of water. If I take a bowl of water and put it across the fan, and there is the air which is flowing from the fan, what will happen to the bowl of water? The water will flow along with the direction of the wind. Am I right? Just like that, when you have the global winds, when you have winds like trade winds which continuously move in a certain direction, you'll also find that oceanic water also moves in certain direction. So for example, if you see here, this is the equator. This is where you will find the trade winds like this, and this is where you will find westerlies. Can you see the movement of the water? The water is moving from, say, America towards Europe, because westerlies also move from west to east. right? Similarly, you can see the trade winds. They blow here in the direction of northeast. Because the water is moved more towards the western side, this is west, no? More towards the western side, the water is also dragged, right? That is one. Then moving further, you will see that because of this, ocean water is moving. So I can say that winds, insulation are one of the prime reason. And another factor we also have is Coriolis force. What is that? Coriolis force. Rather, Coriolis force is not a force, rather it is an effect. It is an effect. And by the way, if you have any doubts, you can post in the comment section, in the chat section, live chat. I am here to solve your doubts. So you will see that Coriolis force, any freely moving body will deflect towards the right in the northern hemisphere and left in the southern hemisphere. We will discuss about Coriolis force in detail tomorrow in the chapter of global winds. You can watch it tomorrow. So Coriolis force, what does it do is, it will deflect the wind systems towards right in the northern hemisphere and left in the southern hemisphere. So because of that, when wind is trying to move like this, when the ocean current is moving to like this, it will try to deflect the wind systems and the oceanic currents towards the right in the northern hemisphere. So when imagine the wind is pushing like this, Coriolis force will make it to deflect like this. So what is happening? So your path is like this and you will be deflected like this because of the Coriolis force. So every freely moving body will deflect towards the right in the north and left in the south. And this is because of insulation. This is because of the rotation force of the earth. So these are the primary factors. Similarly, you also have things like gravity, that will also have a role to play. Then when you talk about the secondary factors, you have things like coastline, the sea coastline. I think this color is not good. Okay, we'll go with the white. So coastline. So when you have a coast, imagine water is moving, as you can see in this picture, water is moving here. If there is a coastline, what can the water do? It will deflect. So it is moving towards north. Here you see, there is no coastline. All the oceans are interconnected. So what is happening? The oceanic water is continuously moving, predictably moving through across the world. So can I say that it is a coastline is also one of the trigger for the water to deflect towards north here? Can I say that? Yes, definitely yes. This is a coastline alignment. So that is the secondary factor which will influence. So we can talk about that, the coastline, right? Similarly, you can also talk about, say, the temperature difference, the salinity difference of the water, oceanic water salinity, which will have an impact on mainly on density of water. Even density is also an important factor. So oceanic water, imagine there is more salt, what will happen? The water will sink. What will happen? The water will sink. As the water sinks, there is a vacuum created at the top, the water flows. So imagine, this is the oceanic water, right? Salinity of the oceanic water sinks here. Because of more salinity here, the water slightly sinks. What will happen? There is a balance created. Because of this balance, now the water moves here. As the water is moving, who has initiated this movement? The density. So this density can be because of temperature, can be because of salinity. That is also a factor, right? Then even sometimes bottom topography of the oceans. What is that? Bottom topography of the ocean. That is also having a role to play. So how does bottom topography of the ocean have a role to play? So if you see the bottom topography, you have something like, islands, the volcanic islands, and the sea mounts, the mid-oceanic ridges. There are multiple things. They also have an influence on oceanic currents. In other words, what I am trying to say is all these factors together will lead to the movement of the oceanic water in these directions, right? And one more thing, you can see here there is a red color line and there is a blue color line. What is the difference? What is the difference? This red color, can I say that this red color is coming from the equator or the lower latitudes to higher latitudes? You can see this is a lower latitude and this is a higher latitude. So the red, you can see this current is moving like this. What will happen to this current? What is the characteristics of this current? That is, what is the kind of temperature the water is varying? Can I say it is warm? Yes. Warm water is being dragged from, say, from here to here, right? Similarly, you can see this is a higher latitude region, this is a lower latitude region. So when water moves from high latitude to low latitude, what happens to the temperature? Will be high or low? It will be definitely relatively low. So this will become a something like a cool or a cold oceanic current. Similarly, if a current is moving from, say, here, from the Greenland regions towards the northeastern portions of towards of America, can I say that that current is like a coming from higher latitude, so it is having more coolness, so it transfers cool temperatures, so that current is called as cold oceanic currents. In other words, oceanic currents are of two types: warm oceanic current and cold oceanic current. Any current which moves from lower latitude to higher latitude, we can call it as warm, and any current which moves from higher latitude to lower latitude, that is from here to here, then that is called as cool or cold, isn't it? We'll not call it as hot, no? Why? As I told you, water will not be extensively heated up. We don't have that much of energy to make it boiling water, right? That is not what you see in the ocean. Okay, this is the basic kind of understanding you need to have, right? So warm current. One more point: our ocean currents are surface or they also blow in the subsurface? Are they only at the surface? They are also in the subsurface. I would say that they are both. That means they are both horizontal, that is the surface currents, as you can see in this diagram. Surface, they are also vertical, which we call it as upwelling of the ocean currents, downwelling of the ocean currents. For example, in the polar regions, water becomes very, water contracts. Also, when sea ice develops, there is more amount of salinity contraction, because sea ice will, it separates the salts. Only the water will be turning into solid, leaving behind the salt. So the density will become very high. Because of that, the water will sink. As the water sinks, this is what we call it as downwelling. What do you call it as? Downwelling. So in this way, we can say that ocean currents are of two types: warm current and cold current, in terms of that. And the another type of differentiation is, are they horizontal or they vertical? They are both. Majority of the things which we discuss is horizontal in nature, because excuse me, vertical takes so much amount of time. Vertical takes so much amount of time. This is the basic thing you need to understand. I hope I am clear to you until now. Okay, let's now discuss about the next thing. Let us take the examples of excuse me, the North Atlantic Ocean currents. So if you see this, Yeah, we have discussed about how do they form and all. Then when you see the North Atlantic Ocean currents, when I have taken this as a base, you can clearly see it here, right? This is the equator. The water moves here, right, along the equator. Now what happens here? Let me explain to you with this. So what do you have? Let me explain the wind systems first. Okay. You have the wind systems of trade winds which blow like this, and then you have the wind systems of westerlies which blow like this. So this is the say 30 degrees line. As you see that, what are trade winds are doing? If this is the if this is the equator, trade winds are moving from here to here. Because of that, the water will be moving more towards west. Also, Coriolis force is mostly absent nearer to the equator. We know that Coriolis force is absent at the equator, and it is more as you move away from the equator, say after 5 degrees, 10 degrees latitudes. So, because the wind is moving like this is the trade wind, the oceanic current will be moving towards the west like this. So there is more piling up of water here. There is more water which piles up here. So this water. Now, because of the coastline alignment, they will be deflected towards the north. As you can see here, deflection towards the north. They enter into Gulf of Mexico. Then after Gulf of Mexico, they cross the region, and now they are under the influence of, say, the westerlies. Westerlies blow like this. As under the influence of westerlies, now this current is deflected more towards the across the Atlantic Ocean, and as they are moving, Coriolis force will also deflect them towards the right in the north. I also told you that Coriolis force, the rotation force of the earth, it will deflect the ocean currents towards the right in the north. They will be moving like this. And the wind is also traveling. Both are impacting. And then here, somewhere here, so you will find that there are some kind of ocean bottom topography which are rising above the ocean, and they are deflecting the ocean currents into two directions. One deflection is moving towards the coast of Norway. Another direction is moving towards the coast of Africa. You can see they are moving towards the coast of Africa. Keeping the local names, they have named. You have some kind of a Canaries Island here. This current is called as Canaries current. What it is called as? Canaries current. Similarly, this is called as, because this is coming from the Gulf of Mexico, it is called as Gulf Stream. Gulf Stream. And further, this Gulf Stream is called as North Atlantic Drift, because it is drifting towards the coast of Britain across the North Atlantic Ocean. It is called as North Atlantic Drift, and along the Norway coast it is called as Norway current. Norway current, as simple, the local names. Then this is nearer to the equator, we call it as North Equatorial current. What it is? North Equatorial current. One unique thing you need to understand here is, this is known for this cyclical circular movement. Can I say that this is a circular movement? Now you can see there is a circle which is developed. This is what we call it as gyre. What is gyre? Circular movement of the oceanic water is what you call it as gyre. Like that, you will find that gyres are of 5 types, or there are 5 number, not types. There are 5 gyres which are there. You can see it here. So can I say this is one circular gyre, right? Can I say this? Then can I say this is another circular gyre? This is one circular gyre. Similarly, in the Pacific Ocean, one gyre, and in the Southern Pacific Ocean also one gyre you have. Right. Now, if you see it, you don't have such kind of gyre in the Indian Ocean. There is no gyre here. Why? It is nothing but the distribution of land and water. There is more land. The water is not having that phenomenon to have an impact. So these gyres are, what are these things? One unique thing about the Atlantic Ocean is you have, you see, this is the North Equatorial Current, this is the Antilles Current, this is the Gulf Stream, and then you have the Canaries Current. There is one area called, a local area here called the Sargasso Sea. Sargasso is nothing but a seaweed, algae, seaweed. It is Sargasso Sea is the only ocean, one uniqueness for you, it is the only ocean without land boundary. There is no land boundary. So, Sargasso Sea, what is the uniqueness of Sargasso Sea? It is the only ocean in the world without a land boundary. It is part of the gyre which I am trying to tell you, the gyre of, the subtropical gyre of the Atlantic Ocean. That is the uniqueness. Then you can see here clearly, this is the seaweed, the Sargassum seaweed. This is the uniqueness of this, and it is a very important habitat for so many kind of marine life. There are so many fishes, birds which survive of it. You can see here the Sargasso seaweed, the mat which is prepared by the seaweed, it is an important hatchet for the important thing for the turtles. You can see this Sargasso is a food for the fishes, and thereby there is decent amount of fishery growth as well, and this is also the base of the birds. And by the way, do you know, sometimes in certain parts, birds and dolphins are in harmony. They are like best friends. Dolphin will try to kick out a smaller fish into the air, and the bird catches that and gets it food. That is there. They are best friends. Okay, okay, not naughty friends. Huh? They are helping each other. Right. Now this is the uniqueness about Sargasso Sea. I think now you got an idea. Moving forward, one more thing you need to remember. There is a cold current. You can see that there is a cold current which is coming from the Greenland towards the northeastern coast of America. We call it as Labrador current. Labrador current. There is a, you know, Labrador is a place in the Canada region. It is a province of Canada. We have the dog breed of Labrador, no? Labs. These labs are from this part. They have their origin to a certain extent. To a certain extent, yes. Right? They have their origin there. That is where you get the name called Labrador current. Now, what is the thing which you need to remember? The main things. Where is Gulf Stream? Is it warm or is it cold? Or which part of the ocean it is part of? They will not ask you. Which of the following currents are warm? Which of the following currents are cold? They will ask you that. Or they might ask you, what is the significance of this? That they will ask you. Then there is also some kind of an impact which we will discuss. Once we will get to know the impact, then I will discuss about how to prepare this topic. So next topic of this is impacts of ocean currents. See, by the way, I have taken North Atlantic currents as the base and I have given you some examples. Like that, we can talk about every other ocean as well. Then when you talk about the impacts of ocean currents, one of the most first major impact of the ocean currents you need to see is they are part of the cold currents which you find here. You can see here, this is the cold current which is called as Canaries. They are always associated with the desert. You can see here. You can see there is a cold current, as you can differentiate in terms of the color, right? So because of that, this is a cold current and it is always associated with a desert formation. You can see the desert. How? It is not the only factor, definitely it will help. So what does cold ocean current do is, because it is cooler, there is no moisture. In the ocean, there is no moisture which is able to be used for the rainfall. What is a desert? By the way, what is a desert? How can you differentiate? Define a desert. How can you define? Desert means lack of Vegetation. What is that? Desert? Lack of vegetation. Lack of vegetation, how does it happen? No rainfall. Why you don't have a rainfall? Because there is no moisture here. The ocean, because it is cold, cooler, there is not much warmness for the air to evaporate, for the water to evaporate. As the air is because of that, air is very dry air. So air is very dry. So moisture is not there. That is one of the reason for desert formation. Okay, this is one of the factor. All the hot deserts are always associated with the cold oceanic current. Can you name some kind of hot deserts? As you can see some of the hot deserts on this map. Can you put it down in the comment section? Can you identify them? Please identify. Along with you, I am also helping you. There is a desert here called as Sahara Desert. This Sahara Desert is associated with the cold current called Canaries. There is a desert here called as Mojave Desert, Mexican Desert, Sonoran Desert, local names, which is associated with the cold current called California. Look at the current coming from the south, coming from the north to the south, north to the south. You can see exactly here, there is no current which is coming from the north to the south. There is a current which is moving from south to the north. This is from the equatorial regions, whereas this is from the cooler region. That's why it's a cold current. You can also see here, this is coming from the lower latitude to higher latitude. That's why you have a cold current here. Here you have a desert by name. Can you name this desert? Anyone? Atacama Desert. Atacama Desert of Southern America. Then similarly, you have the Namibian Desert here, which is associated with a cold current called Benguela. Similarly, even for Australia, you can see here the Great Sandy Desert or the Great Australian Desert is associated with the West Australian current which is coming from the lower latitude. So I would say that one of the major impact of ocean currents is the climate. I told you, they are the global heat balancing agents. They have an influence like this. This is one of the major factor. Not just that, they are also known for fishing grounds of the world. What are that? Fishing grounds of the world. Whenever cold current and warm current meet, the meeting points of cold current and warm current is very conducive for the growth of phytoplanktons. Phytoplanktons. By the way, when warm current and cold current meet, there will become proper mix of the water. When there is proper mix of the water, there is more nutrients which are mixing. Thus, nutrients are conducive for the base of the ocean water ecosystem called phytoplanktons. When these phytoplanktons grow, the zooplanktons grow. When these grow, the fishes grow. When the fishes grow, the big whales grow. All the things, you will find a unique dimensions of this. Because of this, you will find that the cold current, warm current and all those kind of things, you will find that the phytoplanktons are growing, because of which you will find that because of these phytoplanktons and all, they are known for fishing grounds. The best fishing industry is always available where there is a meeting point of cold current and warm current. One such example is, you can see the Gulf Stream, which is coming along the coast of America, and then the Labrador current, which is coming from the Canada's coast. When they meet, this meeting point is what you call it as the Grand Banks. Now, don't say these are not banks like SBI. Huh? These are the grand banks of the oceanic water where you can collect so much amount of fishes, fishing grounds, fishing industry. So you have the big cities of America. Moving forward, if you see, there are so much beautiful urbanization which is developed in the northeastern coast of America, isn't it? Right? So you can see here, this is the northeastern coast. These are the big cities you'll find. The cities like New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, the cities like Detroit, Chicago, Toronto of Canada. There are so many big cities, big urbanization centers. and that is the fuel of demand. You know that there are the exclusive seafood restaurants. Seafood restaurant, one uniqueness. When the specialization happens, you cannot go to a restaurant and decide what do you wanted to eat. You have to first decide what you wanted to eat and then go to a restaurant. Right? So that is the thing. Seafood restaurants, exclusive. If you go there, you will find dominated by seafood. Big restaurants are located like that. So those is the fishing ground. You can see Labrador current and this. Very similar to it, you'll also find it in here. There is a warm current called Kuroshio current and a cold current called Oyashio current, meeting point, good fishing grounds, which is the food for Japan and China. By the way, for Japan, they don't have much of agriculture, you know. They don't have much of agriculture, because of which they have to dependent on seafood. That is why this is very, very important for them. So, as I am telling you, the impact, the fishing grounds. Look at this picture. The fishing ground, these are the important centers of collection of fish. Not just that, these are also the centers of navigation. When the current moves like this, the ship, any ship which is flowing, it also moves along with the water. As it moves along with the water, it saves fuel. So they are very important for navigation. Remember the thing which you have discussed in mental ability, general mental ability, and in the CSAT paper, you would be discussing about this thing. No, a boat is moving across the direction of the movement of the river water, or it is moving across the dimensions, right? Upstream and downstream. What is the speed? If the speed they will be increasing or decreasing, no? Very similar to that. They will, the economy would be, the fuel will be very, very, when they move along with the ocean currents, they save so much amount of fuel. That is very, very suitable for their economy. So navigation, fuel efficiency, that is the important thing. And also, ocean currents are also important for ice-free ports. For example, if you look at the northern European section, say like Norway, Scandinavian countries, or else if you talk about the Denmark, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, the places here, the dams like, what do you say? They're not dams, they're like port, seaports like Amsterdam, Rotterdam and all. They are very, very, what do you say? In the winter seasons, the temperatures are very low. There is so much amount of ice which develops, but that ice is neutralized. That ice is melting. That ice is melting because of the warm water which comes from the Gulf Stream and the North Atlantic Drift and then towards the Norway current. So what is this? Ice-free ports, because ice is melting. Ice melts. Why does the ice melts? Because of the warm waters. Now compare that with Canada. Exactly similar latitude. Here, there is a cold current. Here, there is more ice. No amount of trade during the months of winter. That is, say, January, February, late December. Ice starts cooling down. Ice starts, forming. As the ice forms, because of the low temperatures, you will find no economy. Whereas here, economy is continuing. The trade is happening because of the warm waters. See, even the temperature is 2 degrees Celsius, 2 degrees Celsius, the ice is not forming, no. That is conducive for the ship to travel. That is the beauty of this thing. You can see ice-free ports, right? Also, not just that, you have so many things. As I told you, ocean currents are global heat balancing agents. So they are having a huge impact in terms of a climate of a coastland. Sometimes what do they do? For example, sometimes they bring about so much of moisture, so much amount of dew, rainfall will be forming. Sometimes you will find that they bring around warm waters at one place, which is leading to development of the things like tropical cyclones. Tropical cyclones. You can see here, there is warm water which is dragged towards here. There is more warm water here, because of which when ocean water is warm, that is very conducive for the development of cyclones. So ocean currents are one of the reason for very well developed cyclones, which we call it as hurricanes here, because of the oceanic currents. So you can see that there are more hurricanes here. The simple reason, Florida coast known for cyclones because of this kind of warm water development. So they are also having a huge role to play in terms of cyclones. I hope you all have understood the impact. So what have you discussed in this session? We have discussed about what are ocean currents. We have seen how are they formed, what is the reason for their movement, the types of ocean currents, the names of ocean currents, and also the impact of ocean currents. Right? I hope you all have understood this. So I would be doing some MCQs and some kind of model answers, how to write an answer, a mains answer on this topic, and also some MCQs. I will be doing that in the Testbook platform. You can subscribe to me. You can check my name in the Testbook app. Download that. The link is given in the description. And there will be allow notifications. And whenever there is a free master class in the Testbook app, you can get that. You can get it for free. And you can watch some kind of MCQ practice on this, as well as also what? Also about the model answers, how to write a mains answer on this topic in the Testbook platform. Right? This is about it. We will meet again. We will have a continuous sessions. Until then, thank you for watching, and for further notifications, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Thank you.